Okay. Good evening. I'm going to go ahead and call our Board of Selectmen meeting for September 24th to order, and it is now 6 p.m. Few announcements. This meeting, yes, and we'll begin with the pledge. Thank you. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Kim. All right, now we have a few announcements. This meeting is recorded by the local scene. Anyone intending to make an audio or video recording of this meeting should notify the chair at this time. And seeing nobody. Financial assistance applications are available on the town's website or by calling the Selectmen's office. For anyone interested in volunteering, there are several vacancies on various committees and boards. To see a complete list of the openings, please visit our website at kingstonma.gov. There is a vacancy on the Wage and Personnel Board, and we also have the Kingston Open Space Committee is seeking 2 new members. The committee assists conservation in overseeing the management and use of conservation properties to help all of us better access and utilize these resources in a positive way. This is an opportunity for 2 residents to assist in implementing the town's open space plan, help improve parking and trails, and identify future conservation and passive recreation priorities in the town, among other benefits. You may inquire by calling the Conservation Department at 781-585-0537 or by emailing Juliana Denham at jdenham@kingstonma.gov. That's jdenum@kingstonma.gov. Also, please check our website for any additional events or notices at www.kingstonma.gov. And due to a recent opening on the Board of Assessors, the Board of Assessors and the Board of Selectmen are seeking candidates interested in filling the open seat until the next town election in the spring of 2025. So we have lots of good things for people. If you have time to donate to the town, we'd love to have you. Interested candidates must submit a letter of consideration and qualifications for the Board of Assessors no later than October 3rd at 4 p.m. Please submit your information by mail to Town of Kingston, Board of Selectmen, 26 Evergreen Street, Kingston, Massachusetts, 02364, or by email to ptucker@kingstonma.gov. All candidates will be interviewed at a joint Board of Assessors and Board of Selectmen meeting on Tuesday, October 8th at 6 p.m. Are there any other announcements? Any of the other members? No? All right. So next we're going to move to open forum. I know we've got probably a lot of people here who wanted to speak about the maintenance on private roads. So what we're going to do, we're going to get to that item under appointments in a little bit, but if anybody has anything to say, I'm going to ask that you do it during open forum. So that's what we're going to start now. So if you have anything that you want to say, just raise your hand, and we'll also check with people on board. Sure. In the red shirt. Yep. And just state your name and address, and then you're free to speak.
Good evening. John Webble, 21 Jones River Drive, Kingston, member of the Agricultural Commission. Simply want to remind everyone that this Sunday is our annual agricultural fair. It'll be held at the town hall on the grounds, so please come out and have some fun. It's Sunday afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you.
John, what time does that start?
1 o'clock.
1 o'clock.
Elaine?
Elaine Fiore, Sewer Commissioner. I just wanted to talk about briefly the report of the Town Administrator. Tonight's report under the financial updates states that the board was meeting tonight to increase rates to support our annual budget, and then there's a chart in here. This is premature and not correct. We just want to, stop any confusion there may be. We're having a public hearing next Wednesday night, October 2nd, in this room from 5 to 6:30. We're still talking about the rate increase, and we hope everybody can join us that night, next Wednesday night, 5 to 6:30. So this document is not accurate, and I hope that you don't read it tonight.
Right.
It's already on Facebook with incorrect amounts being quoted. So in the future, I just ask that, any communication from, our department be vetted by us and, authorized by us, because now we have to be we can't be proactive, we have to be reactive to kill a narrative that isn't true.
Right, got
So,
it. Thank you, Elaine.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Nobody? Anything? About the roads, about anything? Yeah. Please do.
My name is Scott Bishop. I live at 158 Main Street in Kingston, Massachusetts. My address by an acre and a half and also needing access and egress to my home abuts Meadowbrook Lane. And I was not made aware of the letter that was given to the residents of Meadowbrook Lane regarding this new... Meadowbrook Road, regarding this new, what I'm going to say is either tax or cessation of public service onto the road. As I look at this, I have a couple of questions. Hopefully you can answer them because you had a conversation about this at one of your meetings. Why is this coming into effect? Why are you stopping services to citizens who pay taxes?
I think we will be talking about that during the appointments. We're not going to be answering questions during the open forum, but we will address this during our appointment.
So if I have other questions regarding your cessation
Just
of
ask your
services-
questions now.
So I have several.
Yeah.
Why are you stopping services to tax-paying citizens? What are you doing to ensure that emergency services are going to be available to these people? What are you doing to maintain upkeep of town property on these roads? For instance, on Meadowbrook Lane, we have a town pumping station for sewer. Additionally, there was parts of Meadowbrook Lane or Meadowbrook Road, I don't even know, and I've lived there for 28 years, have been taken by eminent domain for the sewer projects. And finally, this states that, the residents of the areas have to pay for them. And I'm not understanding that. If we were a development, wouldn't you be charging the owner of the development? I don't understand. If Meadowbrook Way, and this is where I live, is considered a private way, somebody's got to own it. And we don't know who that is. Why aren't you charging them? Why didn't you go to the effort to look? Is this happening to every town way? I got a list as long as my arm, so we'll be able to go on for a while. Is there a fee structure that's been posted for the repairs to talk about Department of Public Works for remedy options? And how are those going to get paid? Have the inspections been done prior to September 15th and posted on the town's website of the addresses that do not meet the requirements of this letter? I feel that a great injustice is being done to people who pay taxes in this town, and whether we have children or not, that have an implied contract with the town of Kingston that this service will happen. For 50 years, Meadowbrook Road has been plowed. Since Mrs. Berry, who was in her 80s and also lives on Meadowbrook Road, 90s, moved in there. So essentially what I'm hearing here is you're going to be denying service to the elderly. I have a conversation with Paul Basler every 3 years about getting Meadowbrook Road paved. And I say, you plow it, why won't you pave it? And his answer every year has been, we need to get the fire trucks up there. We need to get the ambulance up there. And I know for a fact, when the late Mr. Perry passed away, God rest his soul, there was an ambulance right outside his house. So nobody can tell me that emergency services can't get down Meadowbrook Road. So at the end of the day, I am of the belief that there is an implied contract with the town and the taxpayers because you have been performing an act for a significant period of time. I am of the belief that you are taking services away from elderly and families. I am of the belief that you did not notify all of the intended parties, such as myself, who rely on access and egress. And I am of the firm belief that half of these, such as having private way, no trespassing, or residents only, aren't covered, especially for Meadowbrook Way, because it doesn't say it anywhere. And I would say that this exact same logic must apply to Gray's Beach, right? I mean, you close it for at least a week a year, so you won't be sending public trucks to sand and plow Gray's Beach, right? No? Okay. So no place that the town owns that's closed is going to get sanded or plowed. Just Gray's Beach. Okay. So those are my questions. I hope somebody made a list. I'd like to see them all addressed, as with my neighbors here, and I'm sure that there are other people here that feel that they are having services taken away from them that they pay for. I've got others.
If you want to keep going,
I do.
I'll give you another couple
And
of
this is
minutes.
the face that God gave me, and
Yeah.
particularly, it never looks this angry, but it is. You know, as residents of Kingston for most of our lives, the town has an obligation to take care of its citizens. And I'm dying to know where this came from. Who just decided out of the middle of nowhere that we're not going to plow these streets anymore? Does it save us money? Is it a money grab? Yeah, you can smile, but I use the word.
I want to answer and I can't.
Well, you can when we get to the appointments. But there are basic services that everybody in this town who pays a property tax is entitled to, and snow removal is one of them. And the ability for emergency services to access homes is another. The end.
Thank you, Mr. Bishop. Anybody else?
Can you hear me? I'm on Zoom.
Who is that?
My name is Mary Lou O'Halloran. I'm on Zoom at home.
Yeah,
Can I ask a question?
you can.
Okay, and this is in regarding,
Oh, yeah, can you also state your address?
yes, I'm speaking on behalf of my mom, and she lives on 9 Adams Ave. Her name is Ann O'Halloran, and she's 95.
Okay.
I also live down the street, and we dealt with this on Grandview on our road. So we talked with Paul, who's a very reasonable person, and he said that the issue was there was a rock that was too close to the road that was on somebody's property. And so therefore they wouldn't plow, although they've been plowing for like all these years. My mom has been living there since she was 6 months old. And like I said, she's 95. So, you know, the street is in good condition otherwise, but, you know, this rock is on someone's property and not necessarily ours. And there are also residents on the street that only live here in the summer. So, you know, they might be in Florida for the winter, so maybe they don't care about it. But there are people that do care, like my mom, who needs to access Meals on Wheels, medical care. You know, she gets her INR drawn from Beth Israel. God forbid if we need an ambulance in there. But I just thought it seems excessive and sudden, and we're hoping to get a stay of execution on this law, so that if we do get a snowy winter, she can be plowed out until we can sort this. Another issue is, like, you know, in other places, they put up those sticks with a neon on it that are high, so if there's snow, okay, here's a little, maybe a slight obstruction there that we might need to look out for. Why can't that be done as opposed to, hey, we're never gonna plow your street in the snow? So did you have anything, Mom, you wanted to add, or?
No, that rock has been there almost as long as I have. And I have not heard anybody run into it yet or wreck their plowing truck as a result. And I would like to.
We can't hear what she's saying.
Oh, she said the rock's been there as long as she has. And, you know, these streets were just tiny little trails when we were young. And it seems like, could you sort of just grandfather these streets in and accept that, yeah, they're not perfect highways, because this was the nook. And we grew up in this town and loved it and loved the way it was. And we acknowledge that it's changing, but you have to just understand that, you know, we're all individuals that have individual problems, and that these things are an expense, you know, and maybe when they put the sewer in, they should have thought about the rock then. But anyway, I just wanted you to be aware of our situation and hope that maybe we could make this be something we could talk about more or problem solve more, as opposed to in the month or so we have before snow. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anybody else here? Oh, yep.
Yeah, I would just like to speak up. My name's Alana.
You need to go up here. Yeah, and just say your name and address.
My name's Alana Debona.
Wait, you
Sorry,
can-
it's just
wait till you're there.
The microphones can't pick you up, so the people at home and for the record. Hi, my name's Alana Debona. I'm Mrs. O'Halloran's next door neighbor at 7 Adams Ave. I've only been there for about a year. When we received that notice, I was sure that it was a shrub adjacent to my mailbox that was interfering with the road, because it was the narrowest point in the road. I had that tree removed today on my own dime, but out of curiosity, when my neighbors reported it was the rock that was the problem, I went out and measured. The letter clearly states that plows need 14 feet of passage. There is far more than 14 feet of passage there where the rock exists. In addition, that rock is on the back property of my neighbor's property at 5 Adams Ave. They use the next street over for access. They're not having the same problem. So I don't think they're attending this meeting. And as Mrs. O'Halloran said, that rock's been there forever. They may not even know that it's there. So I'd be very curious about what the actual issue is, because the rock doesn't make sense from a distance perspective.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Yes, please. I don't.
My name is Violet Berry. I live on 1 Meadowbrook Road, Kingston, Mass. You
So the
can't.
microphone only works for people at home and for the recording. It doesn't work in this room. So you have to sort of
Oh,
project
so I
to the
just.
room
Oh,
to
I've
also
got,
speak
I've
in
got
the
a
room.
loud voice, so you can hear me. Okay.
Wait, I don't know if I want to hear your loud voice. Just kidding, I do. Go ahead.
All right. My big concern is when in 1960, when I'm 92 and a half. So, in 1960, when I was still in my 20s, my husband and I, wanted to buy property, and we loved Meadowbrook Road. We loved our lot. But Dr. Mayo, probably some of you may have known him, owned the house that Scott Bishop lives in now, and he also owned the road. It was his road. He had it, an engineer put the road in. Now, my husband and I figured, you know, he said he would just plow his own property. So before we bought the property, my husband and I went to the Selectmen. There were only 3 then. And we spoke to them about it because we were both teachers. One was going in one direction, one in the other. And we needed, you know, to get to school on time. So we went to the Selectmen and we explained, and they told us, they were very cordial. They said to us, don't worry about it, that your road will be plowed and your road will be maintained. And so, like in those days, a gentleman's agreement, when you shook somebody's hand, that was a legal acceptance. So that's what we did, and they welcomed us very warmly into the town of Kingston. Now, when I was growing up, my father had his own business. He was a master plasterer, and in those days, you either plastered your house. There was no plasterboard or whatever. And he always, that's how I learned it. He never in his life signed a paper or had anybody sign a paper. He would quote a price, they'd shake on it, and that was a legal document. So my feeling is I'd like that honored. I'd like to be able to continue living on Meadowbrook Road. It would be a hardship for me if I had to stop putting out thousands of dollars or whatever to keep the road going. And and then I feel it should be grandfathered in or accepted as a town way. So thank you very much, and if you want, I will curtsy.
Thank you so much. Did anybody else, please, sir?
My name's Paul Brockmeyer. I live at 9 Stagecoach Drive in Kingston. And, you know, this came as quite a surprise to apparently many of the residents here in town. And, you know, I had 3 estimates done of what it would take to do even close to the repairs that you people are talking about. We have 3 homes on the street, and the price for the as high as $28,500. Now, I do see something in the letter that you get people sent out, the itemized piece, that the DPW may be approached about, you know, assisting with some of this. I've always said to my wife that, you know, when we've had trouble getting the road maintained, and I've said to my wife that, you know, we would be willing to pay a chunk of that money, but to pay $28,000 of money to keep the road maintained on top of what we already pay each and every year. Our taxes are over $7,000 a year now. And we've never used the services until last winter. My wife needed to be ambulanced out 3 times that year. I don't really want to hear that they're not going to plow my street when I won't be able to get an ambulance into my home. So I guess I would like to know what the process would be for dealing with the DPW. We actually had a conversation with the gentleman who is in charge of roads here in town, Mr. Bassler. Mm-hmm. He was going to have a discussion with Valerie Massad and get back to us on Monday. We didn't hear back. We haven't heard today. We were told he was going to be here. I don't know if he is or not, because I don't know him by face. Hello. You know, I'd like to know what the results of that conversation were, if it even took place. You know, what can we do? There was some talk about, in that conversation, about postponing this thing for 10 to 12 months so that people at least could arrange for financing to get this type of thing done. You're giving us 6 weeks to get $28,000 and 3 people on the street to cooperate, one of whom recently bought the home and doesn't even reside there. He now rents his house. We don't even know, I don't even know the guy's last name who owns the home. So just take into consideration.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Hello, everybody. I turned 30 this year. I see a bunch of ages here, so I think it's fitting that it's my first town meeting. Mr. Brockmeyer, my name is Wilder Parkhurst. I am your neighbor at the end of the road there. I am trying to help out here and do my part in this community, which I have been raised in. I heard another gentleman speak of different services on the road itself, and you know, at the end of my road, we have power lines in an easement. The town may need access to that, right? We have winter on the way here. We also have a cranberry bog at the end of School Street right there. That they flood that bog, they release it. We've had the Public Works had to dig out some of the ditches there because it would fill up with water. That water obviously sits, creates more holes, creates more damage. We drive over that. It's gone pretty bad now, obviously, to the point where I hear some of you guys have rocks in the way, and that's an issue. I think it's really, our street's real bad, you know what I mean? And considering that we have waterworks working our road, clearing it, and also we have underground piping on my street. As the road deteriorates, that pipe is now exposed. That could be crushed, which could affect the whole water access moving out. So there's a lot of different town issues on my private street. Just want to make a note of that. Thank you.
Thank you.
I will say that the estimates have included putting a steel plate over that particular piping that he's mentioning. Cover it over. One of them intends on repairing it, the other one is going to cover it.
Can't hear you at home.
Yeah, I
or
was
on
just
the-
going to say, if you had more to say, you should do it up there. Everyone here can hear you, but you can't hear you online. But if you're done, that's fine.
I think you said something about the estimates included putting a steel plate over that to not crush it.
Yeah, thank you.
I didn't want to misrepresent what you said.
She was just repeating it for those at home.
Trying.
Anybody else that wanted to speak? Please feel free, don't be shy. Yeah, that's fine.
Hi, my name is Vic Holt, and I live at 25 Stagecoach Drive. First of all, I'd like to know why I was even never notified about this meeting. We had to find out about it from one of my neighbors, Paul Brockmeyer, who called us to let us know that this was taking place. If it wasn't for his call, I wouldn't be here. All right, now, our situation is rather unique in that we had a water main break right at the beginning of our road. We complained for months and months and months. The town highway department and the water department came out and said, that's groundwater, it's a wet spring. It's groundwater, it's a wet spring. Complained again, complained again, complained again. Finally, we sent emails. We can verify all of these emails, phone calls, everything else. Finally, they came out and said, you're right, there's a water main break. What that has caused is sinkholes. The water goes under the, if you're aware of this, if you look at the word sinkhole, how they're caused, right? I could read it from the phone if you want. It's from, I don't know, some type of flood agency, but that's just how they're caused. The water has gone under our road. The road is sunk, all right? So we've got these enormous holes. They're called sinkholes, all right? Now, going further down the road, all this water was a river running down our road. It washed the gravel off, so at this part that we're mentioning about the, we had to put a piece of metal over this culvert that's there. There was plenty of gravel over this culvert. It washed away. We had a river going down the damn road, all right? And it was incredible. And it took at least 6 months to get the town out there to do something about it. They finally dug it up, and they were right. We, at our own expense, one of our neighbors who is not here, who does have access to the road, right, but he does not own part of the road, but we let him use it because he has, he's beside the road, and he does like to get he puts a boat back there, right, so that's fine, we let him use it. And he was nice enough to dig a trench, so at least some of the water went down this trench into this culvert. But as I say, after 4 or 5 months of this water, this river going down our road and under our road completely destroyed our road. So that's all I have to say. But I just cannot believe that I'm even here because I was never even notified. All right, that's all I have to say.
All right, thank you. Please.
Hi, Maria Perry, otherwise known as Rose Perry, Meadowbrook Road. I just have something very quick to say, and it is that for years and years, the road wasn't perfect, but it wasn't that bad. And every once in a while, the town of Kingston would come in and level it off. Was there never a question of plowing it or not, because it seems obvious that it needs to be plowed. And then lately, because of a lot of rain or whatever, for the past year and a half or two, or maybe a little bit more, it has been getting worse. There was a real indentation on the road going down. There's another, there's just 3 of us, Violet, Mr. Bishop, us, and 4, and the Ohms at the bottom of the street, who have 2 small children. They couldn't come probably. But we are not lazy. When there was a problem and there was the road wasn't perfect, I would come and beg Mr. Basler for some dirt and stones, and whenever they could, which wasn't often. Before, they used to fix it on their own, or if we called and said there's a problem, they would come immediately. No problem. We pay taxes. they would bring the rocks into my yard, facing the yard. We put up with that and didn't care. And my husband, who's ancient, he's 80-something, and I am 70-something, would try and, he is. We're ancient, you know? And we're not lazy. He was willing to go there and sweat his heart out. We couldn't have Mr. Ohm and his wife work all day and then come home to the children to help out that often. They did when they could. But he went out there and filled the road and then tried to flatten it out with our feet and, maintained it somewhat. All we're asking the town of Kingston is to come for 10 minutes, drop some dirt in there, and with some machinery go like this and flatten it out. It's not that difficult. It's much harder for us. I just want you to know that we try. It's not that we just sit and ask the town of Kingston to help us for no reason. Thank you.
Thank you. Please, sir.
Sure.
Sure.
Hi, my name is John Coco, 113 Country Club Way. In parallel to what I've heard already tonight from the other neighborhoods, I just want to say that maybe Country Club Way is a little different. I moved into the area a few years ago, and has been nonstop conflict between the town and the developer, and the people that end up losing are the residents of the area. I mean, there's argument, he doesn't do this, the town doesn't do that. And so this latest event is just another example. And I think the average taxpayer in that neighborhood is paying over $15,000 a year in taxes. And yet we're not going to have fire protection, we're not going to have ambulance service, we're not going to have snow plow. Next thing you know, you'll be cutting off the water. I think we're just having a fight between a developer and the town, and all us taxpayers are getting stuck in the middle. So hopefully somebody can be reasonable at this. I have grandchildren in the neighborhood, and I sure as heck want them to go to school. I want them to be able to get an ambulance service, and if a house sets on fire, I'd like to be able to not have to run over there myself to try to put it out. That's all. Thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else? Please.
Good evening. Richard Azulay. I'm at 12 Cobb Ave down in Rocky Nook. A lot of my neighbors are here. Been a resident of Kingston for 60 years. Guess it makes me ancient. I didn't realize that till today. Been on Cobb Ave for 48 years. Back when it was a dirt road. And when I moved in, there was only 2 full-time residents. I came to the Selectmen's meeting. There was only 3. It wasn't in this building. 48 years ago, they agreed to plow because we had a fire hydrant. We actually had 2 nurses living there, needed to get out. And then we can go on and on about all the reasons, that we're hearing today. So we don't really have a dialogue on right now, so I don't know. I'm not going to say you don't have a good reason, but I will say, after being there for 48 years, I think getting a notice just before the winter starts really bothered me. I mean, and I'm saying you may have a good reason, and I think I read that, it was decided in April. So why didn't we know in April? So we could start working through these issues. So that's the main thing I wanted to add is the not enough time. We didn't get the letter until Labor Day weekend. So it was a good start to, fall's coming and your street's not going to be plowed this winter. And if it was like the last few winters, fine. But I think we might be due soon. I don't know. And I'm not sure. I think it might have said that include the Sanders too. And I don't know what decisions are going to be made on this, but I know you need some room for the plows. The plow, I'm not going to get into all the issues on our street right now, but we thank Paul for coming out and working with us, and we can pretty much take care of 99% of it. There's a fence issue, but it's all timing and money. And if, for some reason, no matter what we say here tonight, you're not going to plow, can we get the sand trucks out there? Just wondering.
All right, thank you. Anybody else? No, anybody online that wanted to? Oh, yep.
My name's Mary Ellen Krzyzewski. I live at 24 Cobb Ave, and all the reasons that Rich and everyone else is the same for us. But I have a brother who lives with me who's elderly, disabled, and on dialysis, and he has to be in Plymouth Cottage 3 days a week at 7 in the morning. So we need our road plowed. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And anyone else? Anybody online? All right, seeing none, I'm going to close open meeting.
Close open meeting.
Never had to do that.
Given the number of people in the room interested in the topic, do you think it would be possible to skip to the topic of roads?
I would be happy to do that. So we're going to jump right to the appointment number 4, which is a request by residents of unaccepted roads to continue winter maintenance. We have received emails, we've received letters. People have reached out to Mr. Basler to talk about the letters. So we got a lot of feedback, and that's why this was put on. This was not a public hearing. We did allow everybody to speak during open meeting, but it's not a hearing. So we're going to review the request to reconsider or do something about this. Paul, if you want to...
Can I give a little history before we
Yeah, absolutely.
launch too far deep into this? So I joined the board in 2020, along with Don here, and the whether or not to plow private roads was a conversation that had started boards before us. So the issue is that Massachusetts state law does not allow you legally to remove snow and ice on private roads. So when it was happening illegally until this town adopted Mass General Law, Chapter 90, Section 6C, I think I have that right. Yes, 6C. So that allowed us to create a policy for plowing private roads as long as they fit specifications determined by the road commissioners, which are the selectmen, to enable the trucks to safely get down the ways. Now, we've been very fortunate that we've been able to secure third-party plow trucks that have more narrow, my understanding is more narrow plows, so they can fit through some more of these narrow private roads. They're not part of the town equipment. So we are not guaranteed to be able to do that on an annual basis.
And it's becoming harder.
It's becoming harder to find plow drivers. We've been very lucky that we haven't had big storms because we didn't have enough plow drivers the last couple of years. With that said, I think there's an impression that this was like a impulsive decision. That was not my impression, although I understand why it's yours. If you received a letter recently and you knew nothing about this, I can totally understand how this feels sudden. We voted on this in August of 2023. We did not want to put it into place until April of 2024 because we wanted to give everyone a year to make whatever changes or modifications they needed to get the plow trucks safely down the road. I don't know why notifications didn't go out. I can only say that I apologize that notifications didn't go out then. I don't know what else to say other than to say I didn't know that you didn't know, okay? But if you want to rewatch that meeting, which I did the other day just to refresh my memory of what was said, the policy was created based on what we need to do to safely get the plows down the roads, not knock down mailboxes, not hit telephone poles. And when I say trucks, I mean our trucks, not the third-party trucks that we don't know whether or not we're going to have. So they needed to be wide enough for us to get in there, branches cleared high enough for us to get in there, and no defects that are going to trap a plow. So that's what our policy was meant to do. Now, we all know that sometimes policies have good intentions and then have negative repercussions. So what I see is a large group of people who feel blindsided. And that was never our board's intention at the time. And I know, Eric, unfortunately, you weren't at that meeting, and I don't think Missy wasn't on the board at the time, so 3 of us were there for that. I think our intentions were good. We were trying to make sure our plows as a town, which you guys should care about as well, don't get damaged, your property doesn't get damaged. It's just not necessarily the way things ended up going. There were questions about private ways. So private ways are owned by either an entity or the people who own the property along the road. So Massachusetts Supreme Court defines private roads as ways for travel not laid out by public authority or dedicated to public use. Now that means there's a legal process for getting your road accepted. If you go back and watch that August meeting from 2023, you will see us talk about a bylaw that we tried to put into place that would give people who live on private roads a process to getting their road accepted by the town. Once your road is accepted by the town, then we can maintain it, we can plow it, we can do all of the things, and we don't need to jump through these hoops that we're talking about right now. That bylaw didn't pass, probably because a lot of people who were impacted by it maybe didn't know about it, maybe they weren't there at town meeting, I don't know, I can't speak to it. I voted for the bylaw, it didn't pass. So we're going to try to bring it back, and that bylaw brings forward a process for how do I get my road to a point where I can get it accepted by the town, which means the whole town helps maintain the road, right? And grading, sanding, I believe all those things that we talked about that were done in the past is considered road maintenance, and we're not allowed to do that legally. So I can't speak to why they did it in the past. I wasn't here, I'm here now. Well, maybe that's bad, I don't know. But I'm trying to address some of these questions. So that talks about some of the stuff. I guess my question to the board, and if Paul wants to speak, I mean, he can speak. My question to the board is, I don't know the solution because we have a problem right now. I don't know, it doesn't feel fair. It did at the time, giving everyone a year. It doesn't feel fair if they didn't know because they didn't watch a random Board of Selectmen meeting. That if they didn't know that they were going to have to do this. I don't know. I can't guarantee we'll have the plows to be able to do it, even if we could do it one more year. I don't know. So I guess that's the question for the board is, do we have another way of doing this? Like, I still support the policy. I think it's right. I think we need to get the roadways so that the plows don't get trapped. The question about fire, I didn't talk about that. The question about fire and police. My understanding, because I asked about this, my understanding is communities with a lot of private roads, which there are a lot of in not only this state, but across the country, some fire departments and police departments might have a vehicle that has one of those V plows on them, and they just send the plow ahead of the police truck, the police vehicle or the fire truck. I don't think we have that, but.
The chief's going to talk about budget.
He's going to talk about a plow. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if the fire and highway share the same radio system. I don't know if we send out a plow truck with the fire truck. I don't know the answer to how do you deal with it if there is a private road that isn't cleared and there is an emergency. I don't know the answer to that question.
And I think some interesting statistics. The town, we currently maintain just under 80, and Paul, correct me if I'm wrong, just under 80 miles of accepted roads. And that includes Route 27 and 106. There's just under 35 miles of unaccepted roads. So there's quite a bit.
When you say unaccepted, that means private in some way.
Correct.
So,
am I right, Paul? Yeah, okay. And then we also have 20.92 miles of state roads maintained by the state.
I just want to mention that Country Club Way is slightly different in that roadway is owned by an entity, and that entity is High Pines. It is not the residents on that road, because it's not part of an HOA or anything like that. So High Pines is responsible for plowing and maintaining that road.
Right.
And the fight that was described as between the town and the developer is actually between the residents and the developer. But
right.
I guess that's a meeting for another day.
So what's before us is, do we want to put something, I guess everything's.
Do you have a question for Paul? I think he came to.
Did anything I said wrong? The statistics about that? Okay. Is there anything you wanted to say, Paul?
Yeah, the policy started out because over the last 5 years, the number of hired plows we're getting to sign up for the town is decreasing every year. Right now, if one of the hired plows gets damaged on private property, who's the responsible party to make reparations to the plow driver? If it's a town road, and the town will repair the vehicle on private roads, and back in 97, I was plowing one of the old sections of Indian Pond Estates, and I hit a raised manhole. I knocked the transmission out of the truck. The developer paid $3,000 for the transmission and $750 for the jack. That was back then. One of my plow contractors 2 years ago got a little damage on a road. Who was supposed to replace that? Now, the policy the board selected in April, there is nothing stating we have to inform the town. The reason why I was told to send letters out in September was to make everybody aware that, by the way, this is what's going to happen. The basic minimum, as far as a 10-foot road and 2-foot shoulders, if some of the people here in 2015 remember that we had 97 inches of snow. One of the most expensive things the town did that year was remove snow. Down the Nook area was a lot of it. So if we don't have the room on the side of the road to push it, then over the course of the winter, and the last two we've been had very easy going, but the roads get narrower, and then we have to hire more equipment, more money to open them up. As far as yours, sir, with 158 Main Street, when I was asked to send these letters out, I looked in the town residence book, I looked for Meadowbrook Road. I did not look at 158 Main Street, that's my bad. As far as the 3-year conversation about ambulances, I don't recall that. Doesn't say that didn't happen, I just don't recall that happening every 3 years. So what we try to do is come up with a minimum standard so that hired plows, when they come in to plow our roads, have a good, safe chance of going through the storm. Because if we keep losing hired plows, I do not have enough vehicles in the town's highway department to plow all the roads. So we rely on them. We rely on the private contractors to come in. As far as, we'll use Adams Ave with the stone. The stone was one reason on that road. The brush that cut back, got rid of the brush. As I said to most of the residents I met with, my job is to make minimal, so the plows are minimal. This was no way in form of trying to get everybody off the plow list. As a resident of the town, as long as I have, I accept plows that the town does too. So I don't want anybody thinking that we were trying to do it to screw everybody out of it, or was trying to save money. It was trying to save what limited trucks we have to plow. I don't think asking people living on dirt roads to fill in potholes or ruts is much to ask. We expect to do that on public streets. And like I said, I want to give the plow guys a shot at trying to stay through with the whole winter. Like I said, we were down about 15, 20 plow trucks last year, and that was down 15, 20 trucks the year before. We are having a big problem getting these plow trucks anymore because A, insurance rates are high, the price of trucks are 70 or 80 grand, and nobody wants to put a plow on a truck, or an 80 grand plow truck, and have the transmission blow, or have the truck break down because it hit something on the side of a road.
We have 2 years where they don't get any snow.
Well, these last two are an exception. I pray to God going forward we have that. As far as Stagecoach, okay, I don't recall ever coming down there looking at Stagecoach Road and telling you that there was underground caverns there. That might have been the water department. That was not me. I speak for the highway department. I've spoken for the highway department for the last 23 years. So when I hear that, I've talked to Paul, maybe my memory's fading a little faster, but I don't recall all these conversations. And I have been the face of the highway department for all these years, so I will take the heat for this. But we are trying to save the private plows trucks from damage, and the town truck. As most of you know, at town meeting last year, the town paid $1.25 million for me to get 4 new plow trucks. They're pricey, they're expensive, and we're going to be waiting another 12 to 15 months to get them. So we're trying to keep what little ones we have that are old up and running to service everybody in the town that pays taxes. It's not an easy thing to do. We've been very fortunate the last 2 years. We've had minimal snow. Like I said, I've been here a lot of years. I remember back in my earlier days, we were getting 15, 20, 30 inches of snow every snowstorm. Now, I wish I had a crystal ball to say, guess what? Winter at 24, 25 is going to be just like it was last year? I don't know. I hope it is, because I'm not going to be here this winter. So I'm hoping for everybody that works over there, for every resident here, that it is a less of a winter that we usually have. But in order to get through the winter, there has to be some minimal upgrades on these private roads. Now, in the past, And Violet used to be my art teacher when I was in elementary school. All right, so Violet and I go back way time. All right, and we used to drop dirt down there. And we used to, the policy the selectmen had way back in 1988, and that was before I started, was if it had 3 or more houses on a private street, the town would do that. Okay, so that doesn't recluse the residents of the owners of the private street to do some maintenance on the streets. And in most cases, like I stated, most of the issues were overgrown trees. Now, Grandview's finished theirs. Grandview's done it. Adams Ave, I think, is done. I haven't checked that finished out yet. There's 4 streets that I've already went down that I've okayed. And it's not that we're going to stop plowing your roads. It's if they don't meet the minimal standards, we'll not plow. Now, as far as talking to the police chief or the fire chief, he's over here somewhere. I just saw him come in.
Police chief's here.
All right.
Mark's here.
Back in 2001, up in Tall Timbers, that's the day when police cruisers used to be LTDs. We didn't get to that road in time. We got a call, hey, I got to get up there, we have a police issue. Within a minute and a half, one of the town big plows were up there, we opened the road. My biggest concern, as your highway superintendent all these years, is in the wintertime, I want to make sure that when you guys call 911, that either the fire chief's ambulances or the police chief's cars get to your house. That is a hell of a responsibility to have over the last 23 years. Please help us help you. A little vegetation cutbacks is not much to ask. If the board says we're going to postpone this for another year, and if you need a little dirt, we can do it, that's fine. But we're trying to maintain a minimal standard. Stagecoach, and I don't want to pick Stagecoach out, but I've been around a long time. Stagecoach is showing its age, and most of these other roads are going to show its age. If they don't get repaired, they're going to get back to dirt. And if they get back to dirt, it's worse and wear and tear on the plows. So we're trying to keep the plows good, and we're trying to not damage anything further. So I know everybody was short noticed on this, but the town administrator told me send them out in August. When I went to send them out in August, we had to make sure that we ran it by our legal counsel to make sure everything that was in those letters was factual and legally binding, and that's what we did. That's why that was a little late. As far as tonight's meeting that nobody knew about, like the chairman said, is they got concerns from residents, so they put it on the agenda. It wasn't they were trying to hide something. It was some residents wanted to get it on the agenda. That's how things work in this town. I talked to some residents that didn't know about the policy. I said every Friday afternoon at noontime, the agenda for the selectmen's meeting the following week is posted on the town website. It's not my responsibility as the highway superintendent to tell everybody, look at the agenda. As a resident wants to be informed, I'm hoping that's what everybody does. But that's the rules that we have to follow being in the town employees. So we follow those rules, and that's where we are here today. Now, the board is here is going to decide what we're going to do here. Whatever they decide, I'm going to follow, and I hope everybody else does too.
So I just want to make one comment. That 3 houses policy that they had, the prior selectmen, was that in writing?
That's been passed on from highway superintendent to highway superintendent.
So this was a policy, an understood policy, but not necessarily a written policy that we could find.
I found a copy of that piece of paper probably 15, 17 years ago.
Okay.
And it was typed on a typewriter because you can tell the
Okay.
difference.
That's good.
And it went into the selectman's office.
All right.
I don't know what happened to it. And none of you guys were here when that happened.
No. And then the second question I had was related to if the board chose to delay the policy a year.
Yep.
I guess my question is, how do you ensure that the plows don't get trapped and that mailboxes don't get knocked over? Because if the plows are too wide or the streets are too narrow, how do we address the concern for this season?
Before you answer that, couldn't we not delay the entire thing, but maybe ease up on the requirements and say, bare minimum things need to be done, like the, yeah. But I mean, instead of delaying the whole thing. But what I'm saying is, the rock isn't going to get taken care of. I'm just throwing that out as an example.
Right.
Certain things aren't, it's too costly. It's some $28,000 for something.
So
but
give
other
that-
things, just give them a little bit of a
Give
break.
the highway department the ability to waive certain aspects as they see fit?
Yeah, I think so, rather than just waiving the entire thing, because we still need
interesting.
to make the roads as passable as possible, sort of in a transition year. But keep in,
Yeah. I was gonna say, if we do that, we just have to be, as a board, we have to be crystal clear that that's a one-time waiver. or something like that, because what we don't want to do is find ourselves in the same position that we've been in for 50 years. And from an operational standpoint, Paul gives us the operational standpoint of plows breaking and costs.
Mm-hmm.
From a policy standpoint, this can's been kicked down the road, no pun intended, but for, my entire life.
Mm-hmm.
And so, to some extent, I know this is not a group of very happy people right now, but this might be the place to where we can solve this in the future, because at town meeting, we tried to solve some of this last year, and people didn't, and I'm not blaming on you, because some people don't know about it. This is sometimes how you can get the best attention is moments like these, but we need the policy to change. We need to update our town's policies to be able to have,
The bylaw.
the bylaw, and
Right.
yeah, and so we can have these standards to be able to say this road needs to be this, X, Y, and Z in order for it to be adopted, and then it's never that's it. It's adopted, but we haven't had that, and it's a big deal. And every year that goes by that private roads or private ways aren't taken care of, they tend to get worse and worse and worse, like Paul alluded to, and to a point where you have two things on one. You have on one end, it could bankrupt the town to take over every private way. On the other end, it becomes more and more expensive for the private owners to be able to, and that's a terrible situation for both to be in. The only way we're going to get through this is to have, unfortunately, it took a little bit of pissing off, I guess, to get everybody here, but I think we can come up with a policy solution in the future to make this thing happen. But it's taken a long time to get to this point. And what we don't want is another 5 years to go by with more erosion and more issues to private ways, to where if the town does have to take it over, it becomes more and more expensive. So it's not, if this was simple, this would have been dealt with a long time ago. And it's been very proactive between Paul, Valerie Moussard, our town planner, our community developer, and our town administrator, and the board to be able to really tackle this. So I just want to say that this has been I've only been here for 2.5 years, but we've been trying to work on this for all that time. And we intend to keep going on it. But I will say, this spring town meeting coming up, be there, because this is where we're going to be addressing a lot of the long-term policy issues.
Including maybe this bylaw, with some slight adjustments, with some concerns that were expressed by members of Finance Committee.
Right.
So,
I do think that we need to resurrect that bylaw, like you said, yeah.
we had some questions from Scott, too, that I don't want to skip over.
Sure.
So why is this coming to effect? I think we spoke to that a little bit, but this has been something that's been discussed by at least 3 or 4 boards of selectmen, and unfortunately, the official final policy falls between us. So we face the complicated and sometimes difficult conversation. What are we doing to ensure public safety access? We spoke to that a little bit, but that requires coordination with the Highway Department, which is what the other communities across the Commonwealth and the country do. I can't call on you, I'm not the chair, but I don't think he's taking public comment, but she keeps raising her hand.
No, not right now.
So what are you doing to maintain town properties? That was another question. So it sounded like there were some easements to sewer or water across, and I don't know the answer to that. So if in the winter we had to get to a town property, how would that be achieved?
We don't plow Grays Beach, we don't plow Pottle Street after December 1st.
There was a pumping station,
Right, there's a gravity pump.
a gravity pump. If they had to maintain it or something happened, they would,
The sewer department gets all their infrastructure as needed.
okay.
And if they needed us to go down there to move a loader, to move snow, we could do that too.
So much like if there was an ambulance, you would coordinate
Oh,
with them
ambulance
they
and
would-
police
sure.
cruisers take priority.
Okay.
So let me understand what you just said. Paul,
we
you'll
can't
have
do
to-
this.
Yeah, we're not
Sorry.
taking questions right now.
No,
We're
sir,
not taking
sir,
questions,
can't.
Scott.
are we able to respond at all?
No, this is our part of the meeting. That's why I was saying before it was open forum.
So implied contract due to set precedent, I mean, I understand that concept. Unfortunately, I can't speak to why they were plowing roads prior to that statute being adopted. Like, I can't speak to that. They started plowing private roads before any of us were here, including Paul, so I don't know why they did that. I can't address that, I apologize. As to the tax dollar question, it's complicated because the clearing of private roads and the maintaining of private roads is actually not in the budgets. So it's not something that is actually technically taxed for. So if you looked at the line item budget that we get in a binder that's about this thick every year, and we go through line by line, plowing and maintaining private roads is not in the budget. So it's not really technically part of the taxes that we all pay. But if you get your road accepted through the process and it becomes a town road, then it would be. I think there were more questions. I'm not sure I was able to write them all down, but there was a request for a stay of execution, which I think is what we're discussing now.
Which is what we're discussing, right.
I mean, it seems like this is something, and I don't, to make a clear and cut decision right now seems premature, because we made a decision, we made a policy decision, Paul made the recommendations to us. To just vote and say, no, we're not going to do any of that seems very premature, not understanding the ramifications of the budget that we have set, like you had mentioned, plow drivers and everything that's been set up for this year. To just go and kind of flippantly change that right now seems like a mistake, because we don't know what the mistake could be. We don't know what the consequences could be by voting on that. I mean, does it make sense to push this off 2 weeks and give
Ask Keith for some analysis.
Yeah, I mean, Keith and Paul a bit of an analysis and maybe a second look at some of these roads, or, I mean, because the reality is, if some of these roads are going to damage, we should not be doing it. But maybe it gives us a little more time to look at the benefit, or not the benefit, look at the cost analysis and the legal analysis. And we should probably go to council on this as well, to make sure if we're doing it this year and we've done it, make sure that we're not legally bound to do it next year, or something, whatever there's things that we don't know, that we just don't know yet. Would it make sense to take this 2 weeks and dive a little deeper into it and then come up with a plan?
The only thing I just want to reply to about what you said was, if we are doing this and it wasn't in the budget and we don't have enough trucks, I mean, Paul, you're triaging streets, you're getting the main roads done first, you're getting schools open where you can, things like that. So I would think that if we didn't have enough trucks, then some of the private roads would just be done later.
Yeah.
I'm assuming.
Yeah, our priorities are the main roads first, secondaries, town hall parking lots priority. That was years ago. And then we start getting into the little streets, subdivisions, depending on the amount of fall and how many trucks we get. We have, very rarely do I get 100% of the trucks on every storm. Very rarely do I get 100% of town employees on every storm. Depending on sick time, vacation time, breakdowns, it's different each storm. And, we do the best we can, and the last 2 years have been easy. Like I said, 2015 was a difficult year, but we got through that. Like I said, if you want to postpone, I understand the fence line on Cobb was a big issue. The paving on Stagecoach is an expensive. I mean, I've seen a lot of residents go out already, cut the brush back. Some have already filled some potholes on the dirt roads. As far as the infrastructure, and I heard that too. When the sewer department did their sewer stuff in '99, is Lane still here? The reason why they paved the dirt roads was to protect their infrastructure. They have an easement. They didn't take control of the road. It's still a private street. They have an easement. And all that pavement now is about 24, 25 years old. I don't think they're on the impression they're going to repave those streets. Right, so the roads, most of the roads that I looked at were dirt roads, Violet's roads, that one there. It's got a rut in it. And rut's caused now, as we know, it's raining a lot more lately than it has in the past. And if we keep getting this amount of rainfall in a short period of time, a lot of these dirt roads are going to fail. That's something that down the road, if you're a private resident on a road, that's why when I talk to the residents on the private streets, I said, listen, there is a policy, a way to start getting you in line to get your road accepted. I sent out 21 different letters, or 21 roads. There are 109 private streets in the town of Kingston. I only sent 21 out because they didn't meet the criteria. All the other ones meet the minimum criteria.
Right.
May I jump to him at least?
No, because it's not an,
What
it's not an open hearing.
He brings it up now, so it needs an answer. It's very important.
I can't open this up because then this is going to go on, this is going to devolve into going back and forth. So I don't want to do that now. I think what we will probably do, it sounds like maybe put this off for a couple of weeks.
Can I just
Yeah,
explain,
go
can I
ahead.
just the clarity on, no, we can't, so the reason why.
Hold on.
So, no, I just want to explain the reason why is during open forum, it's open to anybody in the public. That's why somebody came and talked about the agricultural side of it. And so when you don't have a public,
It's not a hearing.
it's not a public hearing, it's for the board to discuss, and that's how it works. So that's why during the public part, anybody can talk about anything, right?
Right.
And it gets exciting. Sure, and that's why a public hearing might have to be something that is looked at as well, so.
That's
So
not
it-
a bad idea.
I think,
Yeah.
and that might be what we do in 2
I
weeks.
feel like we did do, so, and the August one, I think, was a public hearing,
We
too.
did, yeah.
We posted for it, I think, as well. I think,
I believe so.
yeah.
Yeah.
Either that or the bylaw. I can't remember. It was the same meeting.
So it sounds like we want to put this off 2 weeks, gather some more information. Paul, is it possible to get like a list of the streets?
They're in
What is that updated in terms of what isn't acceptable, what we had in the handout?
Is that up to date to today, the list of streets and the repairs required?
Okay.
No, I haven't updated the list on the ones that are
No.
already signed off.
Okay.
I've already met the criteria.
So maybe we could have an updated list.
Yeah, so I would say if we have an updated list, and then we can make a decision on, I mean, I again, I feel like it's not fair that people didn't have as much notice. You know, I feel like somehow we should have done a better job last year getting the word out, communicating.
Do we want to consider a public hearing? I know it's going to be a lot of,
What's the post time on that? A month?
That's
It's like
a pretty
14
question.
days.
10
or
days?
something?
I mean, it's not required, so I don't know if there's a.
We did it for the windmills, too. So we posted a public hearing for the windmill. We just gave it, what, like a week or something? I think 10
Oh,
days.
that's it? Okay.
We did 10 days. I can't remember. We posted it in the paper and on the website, and
Yeah, if it's that, that's fine. I just don't want it to
I don't
be
think
delayed
there's
until
no
November.
legal-
kind of
yeah,
thing.
we don't want,
There's
we don't want a
no
public hearing in
legal
December, that's a little late.
Right.
so there's no legal requirement for a public hearing, so that's why it's a little confusing, because we don't have to post it any sort of time period.
Right.
Because we're not required to have a public hearing.
Right, so if everybody feels like they want to make this a public hearing, that's fine, I can ask Keith to do that.
It would allow some,
Yeah,
More done.
yeah, so we don't have to follow the structure of open forum and then it's closed, we can,
right. But again, I feel like, you know, we need to ease this, you know,
Yeah.
we need to get some more information, make it a little bit easier, a
And
little
again,
bit
the
more fair.
intent was never to be last minute. The
Right.
reason we didn't enact it last year was because we wanted to give everyone a year, so I apologize for it not going out till now. We
Right.
voted
I know,
it
I
August
know.
of 2023.
Yeah, got
My
it.
understanding was that notifications would go out then. They didn't. So I am apologizing to everyone for that.
2 weeks.
And we are trying
Our
to
next meeting
remedy
would
that
be 2 weeks.
at a future meeting.
I would say respectfully, if we just go with it, then everybody's gonna be very pissed off because we're not gonna change it. So the best way to do it is to have a dialogue. We have to go back to the board. We have to go.
We need to get some more
We need
information.
answers on our financials. This is a town. We can't make decisions off of straight emotions. And I know you guys are not happy, and it's very understandable. You should have been notified, and absolutely, okay? So,
that's not Paul's fault either, by the way.
no, yeah,
Right.
it's somewhere in this $55 million budget in town, right, somewhere it fell through. The intention by our board was to give you time, because we voted on this a year and a half ago. And like I said, you didn't know about it. And so the best way to do it is to do a public hearing, which we don't have to do by law, but would allow us to have the open dialogue that we wanted to have tonight in 2 weeks, and to be able to go back and forth. I would say we probably will bring in a few other department heads to be able to have answers, right? Answers from people, dialogue back and forth, and get down to the bottom of this thing.
And I would say it's not that we're
Separate
trying to
electric
postpone it and not have it done being closer to November. We're trying to solve it. I mean, I'm telling you, we're all residents of the same town.
Eric,
you know.
the way I look at it is we've got three options, right? Not three. We could get rid of the policy entirely, which I don't have enough information to vote in favor of that.
Right.
We could keep the policy as it is not change anything, which I don't think is fair at this point, given that people didn't have the notification that was intended. So that leaves us a middle ground, which is either delaying the policy till next year or figuring out maybe some tweaks for this season to address the concerns about the trucks, but also try to get to as many private roads as possible. And that's what I would like to do, but I don't have the
Agreed.
information to do that right now. Because the language has to be very specific on what exactly we're changing. Because it's a legal written policy. We can't just say, we're gonna change it, that's my motion.
Yeah, we need to check with legal counsel, we need to make
So-
sure things are buttoned
And I
up.
need time to look at the old policy and talk to Paul and talk to Valerie and talk to Keith and figure out how we could address some of these concerns for
Right.
this year.
Right.
So that we're not in this position.
And I will say, everybody who came tonight and spoke, I appreciate everything that you've said.
And the
we-
letters.
And the letters. And if we have a public hearing in 2 weeks, you're more than welcome to come back and say the exact same things. But I've heard everything that all of you have said. If you have more to say, absolutely come back. If you just want to repeat yourself, feel free to do that as well. That's your right. I mean, you guys are all residents of Kingston. You have that right. And we're not trying to take that away from you. We just need to make the right decision that's best for the entire town. And that's what we're trying to do. And not harm anybody.
We have 5,500 households to consider.
Correct.
You know, and 190 of them aren't on the plow list. So we have to figure out how we can
Right.
address some of that.
And we want to fix this too, just like you guys do. So,
Okay, so, I mean, I think we should move to another topic, because I'm not ready to make a motion or vote on a motion.
No, I would just move it to the public hearing.
Okay.
next- In 2 weeks.
2 weeks, public hearing?
all right, we don't need a motion for that.
You might need a
Okay.
recess, though, unless everyone's staying for the whole meeting.
Yeah, so you know what, we'll take a recess for 5 minutes. All right, I'm going to call our meeting back to order at 7:22 p.m. And we are going to go to appointment number 1. Oh, geez. Yeah, I know, my thing just disappeared. All right, appointment number 1. We have an appointment of Holly Nagelli as the interim director of Elder Affairs. Due to the recent resignation of the director of Elder Affairs, Mary Beth Lawton, we have a vacancy, and until the hiring process is completed, we have a recommendation to appoint Holly as the interim until a director is hired. Does anybody have any questions or want to make a motion?
Move the Board of Selectmen appoint Holly Nagelli as the interim director of Elder Affairs at a grade 12, step 1.
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That's unanimous. Thank you, and thank you, Holly.
Are we 4-0?
We're missing one.
4-0, okay. Thank you.
And thank you for waiting.
And thank you for stepping up.
Number 2, our quarterly update with Police Chief Brian Holmes.
As he makes his way to the microphone, I just wanted to clarify something. So I thought, when we talked about the quarterly updates, that we were doing one, from the police every 6 months, and then one from the fire chief every 6 months, but every other? So it was March and September and June and December or something, so that way they didn't have to come here every 5 seconds, but we still would get updates?
It's every 4 months, but.
But Keith thought, no, it's every 5.
Well, 3 months, sorry, yeah.
Yeah, every 3 months. But Keith thought it was both quarterly, so I just wanted to clarify since we have everybody here.
I think it's really, well, my intention when I brought it up was just to get public updates, whether it's every 6 months or every 4 months.
3.
Or 3, whatever. I don't know how many months are in a year anymore.
6. Mark votes for 6 if he gets a vote.
I think it was more just to, let the public know that they're here and listening, because they're not part of our weekly meetings all the time.
Right. We get updates from the town administrator every
I
meeting.
think there's a lot of things changing with the police department, so maybe, it'll be up to you, Chief, if you want to keep coming every quarter, and we'll just put it on the agenda.
Mark votes for every 6 months.
Mark
for
every
his.
2 weeks, though.
Every 2 weeks for Mark.
You're here anyways.
Well, he and I can't be on the same week, we're both
Right.
long-winded, so we'll
That's
keep it at
true.
midnight.
That's fair. See, that's why we were separating them.
All right, take it away, Chief.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, honorable members, Ms. Tucker. Brian Holmes, 52 years of age. I thought I'd say it because everyone else did tonight. So, I respectfully present you with a quarterly update, but going forward, if there's anything that if you want to change it to every 6 months, it's whatever you want. You're the appointing authority here, and I'm happy to provide whichever you want. So I wrote a list of things. I'll cover them real quick. I talk fast, as you know, so if you need to stop me with any questions, I'm happy to answer them. I put in a budgetary request. I'm not going to talk about that because that's your next agenda item. Staffing background checks are almost complete for our candidates. They'll be interviewed in October. The new dispatcher is off and running. He's doing very well. We are considering a funding request for a second full-time dispatcher. The reason for that is because of the critical incident that occurred the other night at Pembroke Fire Station 1. At 1 o'clock in the morning, the dispatcher who had just left at midnight came back at 1 o'clock. So I personally thanked Dispatcher John Schusted for coming back in to bail out Mike because he needed the help, and you can never predict when it's going to happen. So that'll be a consideration for fiscal 26. We have brought the Honor Guard for the Kingston Police Department back to life. 2 members are in training. They have just about the final touches on their Honor Guard uniforms. Some of that was funded by the collective bargaining agreement to reestablish Class A uniforms, but it morphed into developing an Honor Guard that will help our presence in the law enforcement community in the region. If you want to come to see us at the the St. Patrick's Day Parade in the Cape Cod, that'll be our initial event. See how it goes. The fiscal 26 budget, you'll see increases in staffing, but we'll do these at a pace at which both the board, the finance committee, and all parties involved, including the capital planning committee, can sustain any of that type of growth. I wrote down here incidents of note. Obviously, the town is aware of the incidents that took place at Pembroke Fire Station, at the Kingston Fire Department's Pembroke Street Station. So it's a very publicized incident. There's a piece of that matter that's still under investigation. I'll provide updates if they're relevant through the town administrator to the board. There was an incident that received a lot of media attention, believe it or not, that happened ahead of the Pembroke Street incident involving the concession stand that was broken into. It's currently being mitigated by the town's insurer, and it's something that we're working on. We continue to maintain our relationships with the school district. We were involved to the degree that we could be to assist with the recent tragedy involving a Pembroke resident and Silver Lake student. We had some presence at the event that was held, the vigil, and there were about 8 comfort dogs from the program that's supported by the Plymouth County District Attorney. We're going to be adding a school resource officer to Sacred Heart, so that's an additional position that is exclusively being funded by Sacred Heart. It involves a stipend, and it's a part-time position, but based on the incident that happened several months ago, they wanted a stronger police presence there, so they've communicated with us. They want to support it, and I'll provide any updates once that kicks into play. We conducted an ALICE drill today at the Silver Lake Regional, Silver Lake Middle. I will tell you that comparatively to other places of employment, it is comprehensive, and the preparedness is a few steps ahead of what I've seen. So we're going to continue to develop those initiatives and make sure that we're prepared for the unthinkable. The Main Street detail, I spoke to Mr. Varaka tonight. That should be wrapped up. The water project, they're going to be working tomorrow between the hours of 9 and 2, and I think he said no more than 2 weeks it's going to be wrapped up, buttoned up, and they're going to be done on the road. We maintain our partnership with the Council on Aging and the Friends of Kingston Seniors. I was asked to provide chief's hours at the center, so I go down there once a month or more frequently if I'm asked to, and I'll meet with the seniors. We also have a liaison officer, Detective Howell, and they love him. A couple of infrastructure items. We have fall firearms training that's coming up. As the board may not know, we are operating at a deficit. This is something that the town administrator is aware of. Firearms training changed a little bit with the cost that's associated with it, particularly for recruit training, because the rounds requirement increased. So we did have an increase in our budgetary request for firearms. We have some items that are included in the budget request for Microsoft Office licenses, upgrades to the 911 server, Axon Cloud Storage, that's the TASER administrative program. How are you, Ms. Perry?
Hi, darling. Bye.
Bye-bye. I gave her my card because she was a teacher at the high school I graduated from, and it was funny seeing her here. It's a small world.
I don't know.
She's in the PAC TV booth.
We have a general server that's going to be in need of some updates that maintains the IMC system, which is our records keeping system, and other systems. There's been an increase of dog incidents, so you'll have a dangerous dog hearing request coming your way. Lucky you. The clinician grant for the mental health clinician through the Department of Mental Health is on hold. It's on hold because the state's final approval of the Department of Mental Health's budget is pending. It's right around the corner. I spoke to the coordinator today for the grant, and she assured me that it's in the works and that it's the normal course of business, that the budget is not, the final budget for the state DMH is not approved. I'll provide updates on that if anything changes. We are around the corner from a comfort dog program. The hitch to the whole thing was we just didn't have a cruiser to put them in. So as part of the budget request that we'll be talking about next, I'll explain what's going on with that. And you'll see the submission of 4 warrant articles from me. I've already submitted one for a bylaw change for the streets and who has control for shutting streets, etc. I think the board's familiar with that. We will have a proposal for space that's town-owned property for a firearms range. I believe Ms. Emberg has worked with us, and we've talked a little bit about that in the past. We're going to be submitting a request that retired officers be allowed to work till age 70 as special police officers. And there'll be 2 articles for the harbor master. One was a feasibility plan that I said it's not time for it. There's too much stuff going on. But the harbor masters, I think they're going to be for the Springtown meeting. Does that sound right? Yeah, so they're trying to do a feasibility study to have the building looked at for a rebuild. And we deferred on that, but I spoke to the harbor master Monday, and he's got somebody that's going to be working on a grant to supplement the funding for the feasibility study. So we're working on that, and there may be a CPC warrant article for funds for the replacement of the docks. There's some of them that are kind of falling apart. That's my quarterly report. Anybody have any questions?
Anyone have questions? Thank you, Chief. We appreciate it, as always. But we shouldn't call it a quarterly. It's really monthly that you're here.
Weekly. I'm going to be here anyway.
Right. All right, next item. Or should we postpone that? Chief would love that if I postponed it. Okay, request for proposed supplemental FY25 Police Department budget.
So the less is more approach is what I applied here for the training budgets. The board had asked for numbers. You can move to the next slide if you don't mind. We wanted comparables for surrounding towns. I got to qualify on this there that, you know, our budget for training is less than $2,000, but that accounts for the tuitions for specialized training. That does not account for the backfill of overtime. And other departments, they kind of mix it up. Like, you know, there's a flat fee for the whole training budget. It's not the same everywhere. This is the best that we could come up with for comparable towns.
What are they planning for in Carver, though?
Training.
Yeah.
Failure to plan.
Yeah, no.
Planning to fail, that whole thing.
All right.
So Carver is the highest. Halifax is the next down at 10,000, equal to Lakeville PD. Hanover and Pembroke. Hanover is a little over 8,000, and then you have Kingston at 2,000. The next 1,500. Okay.
Hanover is going to request more money on spring meeting to increase it.
So the next slide after that one is just a quick analysis of how many members are on each department in comparison to the budget, just to have a look at more numbers. There was a couple of other things that we were going to look at, but I just didn't want to convolute it. I'm trying to provide numbers at the request of the board. So I will get right into the actual budget request. You should have before you in your packet a memo to Mr. Hickey from me. By the way, this is not me. This is the work of myself, my assistant, and the two lieutenants who are here tonight. So I want to thank them for the work that they put into this to paint an accurate picture to the board so you can make fair and objective decisions on what it is we're looking for. So within your packet, you should have a memo that looks like this. And then you should have a colorful spreadsheet that looks like this. And then you should have a capital request that's a small spreadsheet at the back that looks like this. So the training document is in the neighborhood of $200,000 for the request. And then the capital items is a total of $149,000. I understand in the face of a budget, in the town's budget and the finances, this is not a small dollar amount. I was speaking with Mr. Hickey about ways that he can come up with a solution to these challenges at special town meeting. I did have some discussion with him, and you know he'll be able to speak for himself at the October 8th meeting, or any other interactions that any of the board members have with him before then about this request. But basically, the month was probably February or early March when I was talking to him about a contract for me. Once I was done, I explained to him that the budget, I've already researched it, it is way underfunded in terms of the needs of the department for training. And I received assurance from him, and again, I'm not bashing him. I feel supported by Mr. Hickey and the board, but I was assured that there'd be an augmentation or a supplementation to the training budget, and it didn't happen. And it's possibly because Mr. Hickey was being pulled in several directions on managing the budget, making cuts, or whatever the case is. Again, you can have conversations with him about what happened. But there's been a breakdown with the green section and the yellow section. So the green section is the cost of the training by and large, and the yellow section is the backfill of overtime associated with some of the training that we're doing. My assistant made an well, the blue section is where we kind of lost money. In addition to the blue section, I don't know if it's in here or not, I don't think it is, but When the pandemic happened, we lost approximately $50,000 of backfill of overtime funding because training went online and officers on the department were doing the training online on shift, which, as I've probably explained in previous meetings, it's no way to learn. You have to be in the classroom, you have to be able to interact, you have to hear, you have to see, you have to do in order to get training that's working. So we lost the funding for that. For that and a whole bunch of other reasons, we're now operating at a deficit of 10%. Does that sound right, Laura? Okay. And that's where we are. Happy to answer any questions on this page, but before I do, I want to explain that on the last page, the capital purchases, I met with the county treasurer, and it was with the knowledge of Mr. Hickey. I didn't want to, I said, look, I'm going to talk to him as well, to talk to him about American Rescue Plan funding. And I explained the situation about training, and when it came to capital purchases, he took the last page and he circled comfort dog vehicle, $75,000, and enclosed trailer at $12,000. And he said that provided that the town administrator doesn't have other plans for that money, for ARPA funds, he would just simply have to put it in the portal, and that he would, the treasurer would supplement these requests, so $87,000 for these things. I think that's great that we have a resource right now that's going to be dried up by the end of the calendar year. And he was, after hearing the whole situation, he was willing to help out to that end. When I arrived, I was blown away by the fact that we don't have licenses for Microsoft Office. If we do, there's only a limited number, and we're out of licenses. So it's not cheap, but it's the cost of doing business when you're running a municipal department. Police records management, the system that we're on right now, IMC, it's coming to the end of its life. But in order to maintain it, that's why you have that capital item in there. Off-road vehicle, off-road response vehicle, I'm going to amend the $30,000 request to $1.5 million to get a truck with a really, really big plow on it and some blue lights, if you guys are okay with that, in light of tonight's discussion. So that's everything in a nutshell.
Directed at me. So,
Set
can I ask
yourself
a
up.
question?
Please.
So I guess, and maybe this isn't a question for you, we'll save it for when Keith's back, but wouldn't Microsoft Office fall under IT's budget? Because wouldn't that be part of the IT?
365.
Yeah.
I'm good with that.
So that seems like that should be out of there, so we should check in on that.
But that's gonna be an annual fee?
An annual fee, correct, but it's, we all are using it, so it makes sense to me.
One would think that that would fall
So the
under.
other question I had was that I don't have my giant budget book from last town meeting prep with me here tonight, but looking at what was published prior to town meeting, what we were talking about, the training budget went from $55,000 in fiscal year '23 to $135,000 in fiscal year '24. So unless cuts were made on that line item in the police budget, I guess I would have questions on that.
So there's one in here that talks about a $33,000 cut at the request of the town administrator.
Okay. Okay.
And again, I wasn't here. I don't know why that happened.
I'd have to go back and look again, but yes, there was there was a significant increase for sure. Clearly not enough, is what I'm hearing. Okay.
Yep.
If she knows the answer. Of course.
You have to say how old you are tonight.
Might be the same age as the chief. Laura
Wait,
Casey
HR,
Pupek
yeah.
from the police department. I just wanted to address the shortages for the training. In the past, and when we were able to do the online training, we used that training money to supplement for expenses that are not budgeted. So when I would have people out on injury, I have no line item for overtime for that. When people are out for bereavement leave, I have to pay for coverage for that. So there's a bunch of expenses that I have to kind of manipulate the budget with to cover. Like, what is the saying? To take Peter to pay Paul? Yeah, that's what I was doing with, so I was utilizing that training money to fill in the voids for unfunded liabilities that I had with overtime. Yes, correct, that's another one. If we offer RAD training classes, also for when we have Detective Howell, that's down at the Council of Aging, that is also taken out of the training line item.
Okay.
If I could go back for a second to the last agenda item, just to mention one thing I forgot. we're having a major radio problem with our police channel. And I'm not going to talk over your head. I'll just tell you that the frequency is a 482 megahertz frequency, and that it is right alongside a television band. And when certain atmospheric conditions exist, including solar flare and like low pressure systems, a television station in New Jersey, because of the low pressure or the atmospherics, is supposedly blowing out our signal, and we're losing the radio coverage completely. So if it was not for our partnership with the fire chief, Mark Douglas, he has given us Channel 2, which is a 460 band that's going to take us further away from the television band. And we're still going to apply for a police Channel 2, so everybody will have an operating channel that's not going to fail unpredictably. It's failed something like 6 times since I've been here, and that's an officer safety issue that gets somebody hurt. You know, the chief's also working on a plan for some other ARPA funds to upgrade the radio repeater systems and the satellites all up at the Silver Lake region. So you're going to see that coming too. But if it wasn't for the chief helping us out with the radio situation, we wouldn't have a solution on the horizon. So I want to thank him for that. So if you get sticker shock at any of these training items, it's okay. Some of it's not cheap. That's all part of a strategic succession plan. Some of the things that had me arrive here as a candidate before you to become a police chief are some of those items of training. Mm-hmm. It's high-end training. I want the members of the command staff at the highest ranks to start thinking about how they thinking differently about the job, the role of management, the role of executive leadership. And it's not going to be every year that you see it, but it's going to look expensive. It's because it is, and it's because it's worth it.
So, like I'm guessing, just looking at the participants for like Leadership Institute, so would that be for sergeants versus senior management, which would be for lieutenants?
Yep.
Yeah. And so, essentially, you're saying that would be a one-time thing, or something that would happen, or is it something that you do quarterly, you know, every 5 years, or is that's just a one-time?
It's a one-time class, one that'll hopefully leave an indelible mark. It's 3 weeks. You live in at BU. Police Executive Research Forum is a think tank operating in Washington, D.C. They bring us the latest and the greatest. You're fortunate enough to be with law enforcement executives from one side of the country to the other, and people from other countries. So, you know, the side benefit is that there's some networking out there to compare notes with somebody in San Diego, California that's working on, you know, a performance evaluation system or whatever it is. But you're in front of people from the Sloan School at MIT, Harvard University, Suffolk University, law enforcement executives from, like, you know, Chicago, Detroit, LA, Boston. Bill Bratton is typically a speaker there. You know, people from Los Angeles, Oakland, people that have worked for major cities that are on the consent decree, that have been there, done that, bought the T-shirt and don't want to go back, that share their insights with law enforcement executives that are fortunate enough to go.
I guess as we think about these potential added costs, my question would be, could some be done this coming year and then some the next year, and kind of phase it over a course of several years to try to reduce the cost in 1 year? Or do you feel that this is all needs to happen all at once?
I feel pretty strongly that what I'm putting down is, yes, it's expensive, but it's something that's necessary. The application period for Senior Management Institute is spring, and you would attend one of 4 sessions to start, and they're staggered throughout the summer, beginning at the end of June.
Okay.
Do we want to ask our finance director to come up to answer any questions? Does anyone have questions for finance?
Well, I mean, I guess this is for the town meeting warrant, right? So we're going to have a chance to discuss this again at a future meeting as well, right?
We would.
And I'm guessing the question of whether or not the ARPA funds will come to us probably by next meeting or the meeting after that, right?
So how much ARPA funds did we have available after
I forget.
our last expenditure?
Might be. Do you happen to know? You'd have to come up. You could sit next to Tyler if you want. There's a couple extra microphones and seats.
Come on down.
might need to have the papers out.
So I guess the question is just how much money we have left in ARPA to expend.
If you can recall.
Yeah. Oh, Kathleen Barrett, Finance Director. So for ARPA funds, there's been some back and forth with funds, and there's going to be some supplemental funds based on other towns turning back unspent funds. That deadline has been actually extended, so that is not a definite number. So I actually have a Zoom meeting with them on Thursday to really go through everything that's in the portal, everything that's pending. There are some questions about, like there's something for the school, about the cost. So there's still back and forth, and I did give them a list of some of the items that the town administrator was interested in putting kind of, this is our request as the supplemental funds will become available. The process, I think, is kind of based on merit and cost and availability of funds. So unfortunately, it's not a definitive answer. It doesn't really give you like a final answer for these types of things, but we do believe there will be some funds available, but it does remain to be seen.
So we'll know that for the meeting in 2 weeks, we'll know.
That's my
have a better
intent.
idea.
I
Okay.
really hope that they will know.
Okay.
With their extended deadline for people giving the opportunity to turn money back. I'll have to see if they can give us an estimate.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Any other questions?
Last week's meeting with Treasurer O'Brien, he said right now it's at about 350, but that's solvent because some's coming in and
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know the science of all that. But.
Yeah.
Okay.
But the motion before us, we're not spending any money. All we're doing is saying, yes, we agree to put this on the town meeting warrant, and then we still have to vote on whether or not we support it. So there's still more discussions to come.
That is correct. So does anybody, if there's no more questions, does anyone want to make a motion? If you have a question, please feel free to ask the question, or if you have comments.
I move the Board of Selectmen approve the proposed supplemental FY25 Police Department budget request in the amount of.
It's right here. This number,
Oh.
right? 201, is that the number?
204.
201,
So it's
116?
201
Right.
and then 149 for the capital. I don't know if you didn't receive this or not.
Oh,
Nope.
would that be a separate article, though?
Yes.
So it'd be a separate article, so we can
Yeah.
make two different motions.
All right, so in the amount of $201,116, and request the town administrator include a warrant article on the special town meeting warrant.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I abstain.
Okay.
All right.
401.
Yep. And then do we want
And
to
if you
make
have that number, I'll let you make
I
that
do
motion.
not have the number yet.
It's the
149.
149, right? It's 149,000
capital
straight.
purchases, but do we do that?
Oh, it's not
So,
on
all we'd be doing is we'd be asking to put it on the warrant.
But should we wait for capital
Well,
planning?
capital planning will have to vote on it if they're capital, for sure.
Should they be voting first?
I mean,
I
all
really
we're-
paid attention to how this,
All we're doing is to put it on the warrant.
No, I
They still
know,
have to
I know.
vote on it after things go on the warrant.
Okay.
And we can wait until they vote before we make our vote.
okay.
I don't have that number in front of me,
Alright.
though.
It's not the 149?
It's 149,000
I'm
even.
not looking at that paper.
I move the Board of Selectmen approve the proposed, let's see.
Capital,
Capital FY25 purchases.
In the amount of 149.
In the amount of 149,000, and request the town administrator include a warrant article on the special town meeting warrant.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
Okay,
401.
thank you.
On behalf of the men and women of the Kingston Police Department, I want to sincerely thank you for your support on this.
Well, we haven't voted in favor of it yet, so give us time.
The horse has left the gate.
Oh, it's on the warrant. You just don't know if you have our support yet. I wouldn't get too excited.
Hey, but don't go anywhere yet, because we still got one more after
We do?
this. We
Why
do
don't we
for
just do it
him.
next? if you
Well,
want?
let's just do the one-day liquor
Oh, one-day
license.
liquor license.
All right, request for a one-day liquor license from the Bartending Service of New England for a wedding at First Parish Church. Brianna Fuller of Bartending Services of New England is requesting a one-day liquor license for a wedding to be held at the First Parish on October 8th from 2 to 6 p.m. The application has been reviewed and signed by the police and fire chiefs, and all documentation has been received. Any questions, comments, or a motion?
Move the Board of Selectmen approve the request from the Bartending Service of New England for a wedding at First Parish Church, 223 Main Street, Kingston, on October 8th, 2024, from 2 p.m. to 6 p.m.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
That's unanimous. All right. Additional item number 1, the discussion and possible vote to establish a no exhaust brake zone on a portion of Main Street. So we discussed this at the August 27th meeting, but we had decided before we take a vote, we wanted the entire board here to make this decision. So just keep in mind, so the idea here is that we would establish a no Jake exhaust zone on a section of Main Street, basically from Cumbies down to the 3A Animal Hospital. So if you keep in mind, Keith had reached out to, our town administrator had reached out to Old Colony Planning Commission. Basically, Mass DOT wrote back to us and said that they are not in favor of that. They don't think it's enforceable and whatnot. The police chief had said, I'm summarizing this real quick, that he did not agree with Mass DOT's opinion, that he would enforce the no Jake brake zone under the existing noise ordinance. This would also exclude emergency response vehicles. So our fire apparatus would still need to use it. Chief, do you have anything to add?
I do. Nothing extensive, but in speaking with Ms. Emberg through email, if the town is going to adopt this, then it should be a sign that says something along the lines of quiet zone, no engine brake, no exhaust brake. So it covers both of the types of exhaust brakes / engine brakes that are in operation, and you'll be speaking the language of a trucker if you adopt it in that specific language.
So I am not a truck driver, so I did some research to try to figure out exactly how these things work. I think you all know me well enough that you know that's what I would do. And also Paul Bowser sent me an article on the different types of brakes, so I could educate myself on these things. So I won't go into great detail because I don't know that you all want to be professors of braking systems, but engine brakes, exhaust brakes, and air brakes are 3 different types of brakes. They all work differently. They all create a certain level of noise. The newer engine brakes are quieter than the older engine brakes. The Jake brake is technically an engine brake, and my understanding from people who drive trucks is that you flip a switch and it activates them and it makes a sound. So that's the thing that people are trying to avoid. From what I understand, the engine brake and the exhaust brakes are more likely to be activated with steep and long grades. So anything more than like a 6% grade would definitely be necessary. The section of Main Street that we're talking about is a little over 1% grade over the course of that mile. Granted, there's a piece of it that is more steep than that, but if you do start point, end point, it's a 1.3% grade. So I guess my question to the board is this an issue that we're dealing with often? Like, do we see this happening? Because if truck drivers are using engine brakes or exhaust brakes loudly disturbing the neighbors, they're doing that out of choice, not out of necessity, in my understanding of how these trucks work.
And they're probably going too fast, is my understanding. Would that be fair, Chief, that they're probably going too fast and that's why they would use it?
Sometimes. I mean, like, once you take your foot off the gas pedal, that's when the noise happens.
Yeah.
Air brakes, you can't do anything with that. They make the noise they make. But all of this is leaning towards an aesthetic effect. Whether the neighbors buy signs like I previously recommended to them, and we do what you might see next of the narrowing of the lanes, the aesthetic effect is designed to culminate in another traffic study, which would hopefully come up with a lower average speed so that the white speed sign can be reduced with the assent of Mass DOT based on the new average.
So for the purpose of this evening's discussion, and I don't know how many people read the email from Mass DOT, but they said as a policy, they do not post signs on their highways, and they do not recommend that communities do that. So it says, it is our understanding Mass DOT cannot legally post signs restricting the use of engine braking, nor do we understand that legislature or municipal governments can enact any laws, ordinances, or restrictions limiting the use of engine braking on any streets or highways within Massachusetts. Based on the conversation we had last time, the research I've done since then, conversations with folks, I still don't support these signs. I don't think they achieve what we want to achieve. So that's where I am.
So I think I see these signs on 106 as I was headed to Providence, and I was driving out 106, and I saw it in various towns going in and out. No Jake brakes, no exhaust brakes, whatever, different things. So I think a lot of towns do it for the aesthetic. Keep in mind, this is, a group on Main Street that did ask, have complained about the noise. The chief is saying that, and correct me if I'm wrong, you can't pull somebody over for actually doing it. You're pulling them over for the noise, exceeding the noise, what am I trying to say, ordinance.
The
Correct.
statute is 9016, harsh and objectionable noise.
Right.
The thing that makes this marginally enforceable is that it's designed for people wailing on their horns, spinning their tires, playing a stereo really loud, things like that. But if this town,
Motorcycles like that too, right?
maybe. But if this town decides that they want to adopt this, again, it's marginally enforceable. When you get in front of a judge, the judge is the one who decides whether or not it's legal. But it's kind of leaning towards an aesthetic effect to lower the speed as an average in a future study.
So
I guess the other,
go ahead.
The other big concern on Main Street is safety, and this is removing a safety aspect of vehicles.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
And that's concerning to me. It's also concerning to me that we would be wasting, or potentially wasting, truck drivers' time having to appeal tickets that are bogus. I mean, that's.
Right.
Or are they just going to slow down?
Or they're just going to pay it, which is
Or
not
just slow-
something they shouldn't have.
Do you think they would, if they saw a sign that said don't use these, do you think they would just not do it and just
I mean,
slow
I'd
down?
ignore it, but that's
What,
me.
what do they do in other towns that have these signs, I guess?
They're not really enforceable, so, right?
Right, but so I don't know if people, like if you see a sign that says slow down children, like on my road, there's a slow down, it's an orange or yellow sign, it's not a white sign, so it's like,
Warning.
slow down, there's children, so I do. Do I have to? No.
So I guess the question then is, we have evidence, so I haven't seen evidence to support that trucks are driving very fast on Main Street. The speed data that we had didn't reflect that. So I don't know what problem we're trying to solve with these signs. And it's really hard for me to believe that this board would consider usurping the command authority of the driver to prioritize aesthetics over safety. So I struggle with that.
Is it a safety issue for a truck going on Main Street?
You're
To not
eliminating
use-
a braking system, yeah. It's
But no, I'm
inside.
asking the
Oh.
chief, not
Not
Board
me.
of
So
Selectmen.
what happens is you automatically start to ride down when you have your engine brake in effect.
Yep.
As the exhaust blows back into the manifold. So the combustion slows down. If you flip the switch, like I used to do as a truck driver, you lose that instant deceleration and you're running strictly off of your air brakes. And if you're running a truck that's within safety specs, your air brakes should stop the vehicle based on the weight.
So in your professional opinion, as a former truck driver and a chief, do you think that this would be, I mean, obviously enforcement, you said it's a little light, but it's doable. Would you expect that this would have a positive outcome?
I do. I mean, there's 5 elected officials here, myself an appointed official. We all serve the same constituency. They've asked for mitigating things. That's the effort here. That's what we're trying to do. And I maintain that there's absolutely no harm in doing this. It is enforceable, however, marginally enforceable. You're not gonna violate somebody's civil rights by stopping them for a motor vehicle infraction where they're violating that sign. And, at the same time, it's one of hundreds of other motor vehicle infractions that you end up finding. Cracked windshield, defective equipment, broken taillight, all these other things. So, you don't have to enforce just that one thing. There's always other things that come into play, especially when you're dealing with CDL vehicles.
And this is something we see throughout quite a few communities, right, that, have,
Yes.
yeah, okay.
You'd have to go, yeah, it's up to you.
Yeah.
It's public.
If you can go up to the,
Okay.
I know.
I live on Main Street. My name is Jennifer
No, microphone.
It's okay.
It's Jennifer Cushman, I live at 273 Main Street. The trucks, yeah, we do hear it. I agree with that. But ambulances and fire trucks, they get pretty good about the sirens. They shut them off at night usually, unless it's busy. What I'm finding out is the public cars. We've got cars that go down there at midnight with these mufflers that shake the house. So if you're gonna do something, you're gonna slow down the speed and you're gonna tell it it's quiet.
But this wouldn't impact those
No,
cars. So this
no.
is specifically for
But I'm
big
just saying
trucks.
that besides this,
Yeah.
you're gonna have to think about other stuff too.
Yeah.
Because the trucks do make the noise, I hear it. But that's, during the day, I don't care because it's daytime. You don't see that many trucks going down there at night. But these people with these little sports cars, and I know they're teenagers, are flying. They are. And I don't care.
I'm in bed by that.
So me personally, I have no problem with noise violations being enforced.
I would like
I
to
have a problem with removing a safety feature from vehicles that probably isn't noise violation eligible, and that's my concern.
If it's borderline, I don't.
Well,
Maybe we should-
so, yeah, we should probably, I'm going
sorry.
to stop the public comment part. I'm sorry, just because I didn't allow it earlier.
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
At nighttime, it's
Right.
another thing besides the trucks.
All right, Missy, do you have something?
Yeah, I'm hearing that it isn't a safety concern, that isn't what we're here talking about. We're talking about, am I correct?
Correct.
Well,
You still have,
it
like
depends on who you
said,
talk
You have to have brakes, they have to be to a certain spec. When you
But we're
get pulled
talking to
over,
a former truck
I
driver
get
in
it, and
chief, so that's what I'm listening. I just
No, I
wanted
hear
to.
you. But I've also talked to other people who are driving trucks right now. Like I spoke to a truck driver yesterday who currently drives trucks and said that there has been confusion about engine brakes versus exhaust brakes, which is where we were confused because they had thought it was the same thing initially, but it's not. So the piece of this puzzle that I think we really need to be talking about is all those braking systems are safety features of trucks. That is a fact. I don't think anyone would argue with that. There are different ways to stop a large truck, right? Chief, you'd agree? Okay.
Sure.
So air brakes, which we're not talking about, are louder, according to what I could find, than current engine and exhaust brakes. We're not talking about those because those are required and mandatory and they have to use them and they have no control over them. We're only talking about the thing where they can flip the switch, right? They can flip a switch and they can make noise. That noise is less loud than the brake that activates automatically. So my question is, what are we talking about and why? I don't think we're solving a problem. So that's why I've opposed it. But again, we were 2-2.
Yeah.
So I asked if we could push it off. I did get lectured later by people who said you should have just voted it because the motion would have failed and you wouldn't be talking about it anymore. So to be fair, I wanted the discourse of the full board.
Hey, we don't always agree.
No, but I understood what they were saying.
Yeah.
That if we moved it, it would have failed. Because a tie vote is a no. But anyway, I think if we're talking about, I don't have evidence that there's speeding happening on Main Street. I don't have evidence that these engine brakes and exhaust brakes are an issue that we've been asked to solve. What I've heard is that the people who live on Main Street feel that the traffic travels too quickly. I don't know that telling them they can't use one of their braking systems is the solution. They're just gonna use a different one that maybe is just as loud. So I don't know. It just doesn't solve the problem.
Any other comments, or someone want to make a motion?
I move the Board of Selectmen not approve a no Jake exhaust zone on Main Street.
Second.
You're gonna do a not vote?
I'm doing a not approve,
Are you
because
gonna
that's my
read the whole-
motion.
read
No,
the whole
because I don't
thing?
need to, because there's no intersection.
Gotcha. All right, you have a second?
Yep.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those against? No.
No.
Okay. Hey, gotta
So
try, right?
now we gotta
Do the motion.
make the motion to approve.
I move the Board of Selectmen approve a no Jake exhaust zone on Main Street from the intersection of Main and Evergreen Street to the intersection of Main and Brook Street, excluding the emergency response vehicles.
Sorry.
Second.
Can I make a slight modification to that? Do we have to say engine and not Jake? Because Jake is a brand name.
So I recommend that you change the verbiage to
Yeah.
quiet zone, no engine brake, no exhaust brake.
Would you
Cover
accept that
both.
friendly amendment? Okay.
And
Still,
do we also have,
still seconded.
do we know the grade on?
1.35.
No, that portion of Main Street, because we're going to Brook Street, right? And there's a hill from Brook Street to the
Oh, you're-
intersection. Do we actually know that grade?
Oh, the grade from, I can figure it out, but I won't know it in the next 5 seconds.
No, but I'm just saying, I
From-
don't know if we want to exclude that portion of Main Street is my
From,
point, because that's the only hill on Main Street.
It's the only place they're gonna.
Well, the only severe hill, I guess I would say.
I don't think we have enough information to make that amendment. Okay.
The friendly amendment could just be from that
You can-
intersection. But I'm not the one that made the motion, so.
No, but you can ask for a friendly amendment before we vote.
Yeah, explain it. Which,
Yeah.
what do you,
So it would
What
be
street
from
are you talking about?
wherever the intersection
You're
is.
saying excluding where the hill is?
Basically saying
Well,
it's,
I'm basically
Like
from
from
the.
the point to,
Yeah,
you're
so-
talking about
Yeah, so basically from where,
to
this is the wrong side
to
of Main
the
Street, hold on,
lights,
sorry.
right?
I
Talking
know.
about from Landing Road.
So where 3A and 106 split.
But-
Instead
Landing
of-
Road.
Instead of going down to Brook,
Main
because
Street
down to Brook
Landing?
is your hill, there's your hill.
Well, that's the only place they're gonna activate their brakes. So isn't that the point of having this
But
zone?
they should be able to use them.
Yeah, well, the
on
board
the hill.
says, the rest of the board doesn't agree.
well, you haven't made the amendment.
That's true.
Suggest
so
an
you're
amendment
making a
yet.
friendly amendment to only include this
You're saying
section.
to-
Evergreen
From
to
Main and
Landing Road.
Evergreen.
Yeah.
Evergreen goes back up to
No,
the.
from Main at Evergreen to Main and Landing Road.
Yeah,
He's saying
essentially,
make that a quiet zone. That's what he's saying.
essentially from Linden Street to Cumbies.
Linden Street, sorry.
Yeah.
Where's
at the
Linden
point.
Street?
Right there, sorry, if you want to look at the map. It's where 3A and 106 split, basically, because here's your hill, right? Your
Yeah,
hill
yeah,
is from
yeah, yeah.
here to Brook Street. That's a hill. That's actually a pretty steep grade. I don't know if it's 6%, but that's your steep grade. Nothing else, everything else is flat.
So what you're saying, though, is it would be from here all the way back up?
Yes.
And
Exclude this second part of the,
Yes.
of the motion,
Exclude this portion of it to Brook,
the point to Brook.
because that's your hill, right? That's the only part that has a hill. And it's a relatively, I don't know what the grade is.
yeah,
but
no, I see
that's-
what you're saying.
That's where all the elevation change is, right, from there to
Before you
there.
take a vote, I realized this, an email came to me and only me, so I just want to tell you guys what it says before
Mm-hmm.
you vote.
So-
Is that the, is
I
that your?
don't-
friendly
That's my
amendment?
friendly
not a-
amendment, I don't know if.
Is that real?
I don't
Is
know
there a motion
who,
to accept or
yeah, I
deny
don't
or
know
decline?
who made the motion? Oh,
Missy did.
yeah, so.
So I would like to just keep it as it is.
Okay, so not unaccepted. I apologize, I didn't realize, I had received an email from Valerie. She spoke with Charlie Kilmer over at OCPC, Old Colony Planning Council. I didn't realize this only came to me, so I apologize, I thought it went to the board. She asked about implications of signage for this zone and whether that would have any impact on potential engineering projects and engineering. So what his response was, quote, "It may be likely that an engineering review would find unenforceable signage and require a removal as part of the implementation of an improvement project. We continue to concur with the Mass DOT guidance, particularly since engine braking systems are now mandatory equipment on newer commercial vehicles, and such braking restrictions would not be enforceable by the police."
I think if we're doing engineering at that point, then
I'm just
we
letting you
could-
know that's
yeah,
what he
yeah,
said,
yeah.
and I
Yeah.
apologize that that was not shared. That's my fault.
So I have a question on that.
Yeah.
The skeptic in me would want to know why they have a deactivation switch with everything that they said in that. Why
It
can you
sounds
turn
like
it
the
off?
newer ones don't. So I'm not a truck driver. The truck driver I talked to yesterday said it depends on the equipment you're driving. Some of them happen automatically and you have no control. Some of them are a switch. So that's where it gets a little
And
dicey.
that's some of the difference between exhaust and engine. Is some of them are on a switch, some are through
The
a
engine,
valve, some you can turn off, some you
right.
can't.
The exhaust you can't.
Not a truck
from my
driver though, I
understanding.
just, based
Right.
on my research on it.
Right. Anyway, sorry, you're mid-vote.
All right, so we have the motion on the table, it's been seconded, so all those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Those against?
Wholeheartedly no.
What doesn't count
Can I
for
say
if it's
no
wholeheartedly?
loudly? Does
I
that
know.
count for more?
No?
No, there's a noise violation.
All right, next time I will not move it. No, just kidding.
All right, the next item is to request an update.
Thank you, chief.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Request to update the Council on Aging Code of Conduct and Standards of Behavior,
Do you want me
including.
to speak to the history on this? Or do you
Yeah,
just
go
want me to
ahead.
do
No,
that?
go
Okay.
ahead.
So the council, a while back, the Council on Aging Advisory Board had someone who was removed
last winter.
because they violated the code of conduct, and then they were suspended permanently. They appealed that to us, and we had asked them to adjust their bylaw so that if someone got banned permanently, they had some sort of appeal process that they could come back and ask to be reinstated potentially in consideration. I think that the COA Advisory Board did a great job capturing what we had asked them to do, and I didn't have any changes, but I just wanted to give everybody the quick summary of why we're looking at this, and I believe the COA Advisory Board was in favor of this. I spoke with the chair earlier today, so that was it.
All right, any questions, or does anyone want to make a motion?
I can do that. I move that the Board of Selectmen approve the revised Council on Aging Code of Conduct and Standards of Behavior as proposed.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Well, it was unanimous. All right,
Right.
moving on to meeting minutes for September 10th, 2024.
I move the Board of Selectmen approve, accept the open session meeting minutes of September 10th, 2024.
Second, but can I just clarify, there were two sets of minutes in our packet? There was ones with edits, the ones with edits, right?
Sorry, yeah, the ones with edits.
As amended.
As
Okay,
amended.
yeah, okay.
All right, do we have a second?
Second.
I seconded it, but that's fine.
Oh, okay.
Yes, you can have it.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Excellent. Moving on to the town administrator's report. I am going to read this, and it's going to be the fastest it's ever been read.
Just a reminder, please don't read the sewer rates. The
I
sewer
am
commission
all
has their
over that.
meeting. Okay.
So time me, because this is going to be the fastest. Financial updates. The sewer commissioners met, they met today to discuss and possibly approve rate increases, but that's,
They're going to have a public hearing, I think she said next week,
yes, next Wednesday from 5
or a
to
public meeting.
In
I'm not
this
sure if it's a
room.
public hearing.
Yeah.
In room-
Yep.
In room 200.
In room
Okay,
200.
so-
So the rates may change. That's up in the air. Project updates. The Water Department expects the Main Street Water Main project to begin again during the week of September 23rd. Chief gave us an update on that. Admins from all town departments have been trained to enter accounts payable invoices into Munis, the financial software used by the town. Personnel update. As I mentioned earlier, we did have our Director of Elder Affairs, the Council on Aging, resigned. So that happened. Miscellaneous updates, Wage and Personnel Committee have approved the addition of a building inspector position into their bylaw. And that-
Sorry, it's actually an error, that's commission. I
Thank
checked
you.
with Keith, it's a building commissioner.
Building,
Hold on, I got it, it's in my minute, hold on, it's in my email. Now I'm questioning myself.
you're delaying my time.
It was in the minutes the right way, but it was in his update the wrong way, so let me just see. It
Just so we know,
was-
while you're checking that, the proposed bylaw change will be included on the special town meeting warning.
Yes. Tricia, you don't know offhand, do you? It was right in your minutes. Okay, hold on.
Person of interest.
Building commissioner, thank you.
Building commissioner.
Yes.
All right, and that is it. Any selectmen comments? Tyler?
No.
Anything?
Thank you.
Kim?
I think I just want to reiterate that the plowing policy was not meant in any way to be a surprise. So we'll work on that.
No, none for me either. Our next regular meeting is October 8th, 2024.
It's going to be a long one.
And with that,
Let's make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.